While listening to a Dhamma talk too, you can put some attention to your body. You can come back to your body every now and then to check whether it's straight and relaxed. Yesterday we talked about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, saying that the first noble truth of suffering is to be completely understood in an experiential sense. And when one truly understands suffering, experience it and understand it, then one will be able to see its cause, which is craving, desire, attachment, clinging. When one really and fully sees the actual cause of suffering, then automatically the mind will abandon it. And when this is abandoned, then there is a cessation of suffering, which is the third noble truth, and you can realize it. But how to get there? How do you completely understand suffering at an experiential level so that you can get to its root cause and abandon it? That is the fourth noble truth, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Let us go through again. The first one is right view. Second is right thought. Third is right speech. Fourth is right action. Fifth is right livelihood. Sixth is right effort. 7 is right mindfulness. And the last one is right samadhi, right composure or right concentration, as some people would like to translate it. Yesterday we talked about right view, and I said that there is a mundane right view, which is basically about the moral law of cause and effect. And I also talked about the supramundane right view, not really supramundane, the right view that leads you out of suffering, the right view for liberation. And I said that includes the view that all conditioned phenomena, all constructions arise, persist, change and pass away, and they can be seen as impermanent, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and not self. This can also be expressed in another way, which is more commonly expressed in the suttas, and this is jnana, knowledge or insight in respect of the first noble truth, knowledge or insight in respect to the second noble truth, third noble truth and fourth noble truth. This is also right view. If you can have an understanding of the Four Noble Truths in an experiential way, this will also give you right view. And this, as I said, is very important. It is the first factor on the Noble Eightfold Path. If you start off with the wrong view, then you won't get to the right destination. I also pointed out that although in the practice you may watch your mind, and you may see thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, perceptions come and go, but if you have the wrong view, you could identify all of them as mine, me, myself. My thoughts, my feelings, my perceptions. That's me. I am thinking. I am the thought. I am the mind telling me to do this and do that. I am the mind that made a decision. I am the mind that made the choice. The free will. That's me. That's wrong view. You can see that very clearly. It arises and passes away, but you still think that it's me. Although in our practice, we see all these things arising and passing away due to cause and conditioning, the sense of I is still there. Correct? It's not so easy, because the sense of I can only be fully eradicated when one becomes an arahant. The sense of conceit, I am great, I am better than so and so, or I am not as good as he is, or I am equal. Everybody is equal. We are all the same. So why should I bow to him? That's all this comparison of I and somebody else is a form of conceit. There is some psychological term they call superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and you have the equality complex. It's all comparison. In Pali it's called asmi mana. Asmi means I am. The conceit of I am better, I am worse, I am equal. This sense of I that pervades even through the lower stages of enlightenment. So what has the Sotapan, stream enterer, eradicated? He's supposed to have eradicated the personality view, hasn't he? Well, he has. Only the view. Only the view that there is a permanent, unchanging self in the five aggregates, or any of the five aggregates. And I'm sure all of you have the right view too. You know, the view is there, that there is no self, and you can see things arising and passing away, but then the sense of self is still there. So you have to work at it, erode it, by keep on watching and reminding yourself. That's why the Buddha often tells his monks, develop the perception of impermanence, develop the perception of non-beauty, develop the perception of not self. As I said, perception is not volitional, but it can be programmed. Right? You program the mind so that it becomes automatic reaction, automatic recognition, automatic identification of things as not me, not mine, not myself. It's not real insight, but it's a perception. It is something that replaces the old perception that this is me, this is mine, this is myself. So you start off with the perception, the correct perception, although there's not real insight. And that will influence the way you look at things. We go on to the next factor on the path, which is right thought, sometimes translated as right intention. I shall not go into the etymology of the word sammasankappa, but there are three aspects of right thought. First is thoughts of renunciation. Second is thoughts of non-ill will. And the third is thoughts of harmlessness. Let me explain. Perhaps when you hear the word renunciation, you might feel that you're a layperson, you got no chance. Renunciation means renouncing sensual pleasures, renouncing desire for pleasures of the senses, which you are doing for this retreat. While you're on retreat, you try to observe the 8 precepts, which is a way of reducing your sensual desires. No entertainment, no embellishment, no adornment, no cosmetics, no dancing, no singing. All these things you try to cut down. This is a form of renunciation on the broad, gross physical level. Then on the mental level, whenever any thoughts of sensuality arise in you, then you don't entertain them. You look at them, oh, this is a desire to eat something that I like and it's not served. This is a desire for the aircon room because it's so hot and humid here. These are all desires for pleasures of the senses. When such thoughts arise and you renounce them, which means to say you do not follow them, you do not indulge in them, just notice them, let them go, you are already practicing one aspect of right thought. Not indulging in thoughts regarding pleasures of the senses. Whenever they arise, you look at them, try to see the cause and condition, let them go, come back to your senses. Now, being aware of the senses does not mean that it's not renunciation. There's a difference between being aware of sense objects and having a desire for pleasures of the senses. There are two different things. One is the desire, one is the actual object itself. That's why in the gradual training, the second step is to guard the door of your senses. Remember, when the eye, having seen an object with the eye, one does not grasp as its signs and features. One guards the eye faculty so that one prevents the likes and dislikes from invading or flowing into the mind. If you are able to catch it on time, you don't indulge in it, you don't desire it, or you don't dislike any of the 6 objects, then you are practicing a form of renunciation. You don't indulge in them. The second is thoughts of non-ill will. Non-ill will can be expressed in various ways. A slight irritation. Mosquito comes and woo, 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 and then, why can't you leave me alone? I want to meditate. Get away, get lost. That is also ill will. If you have such thoughts, that's not the right thought. The right thought is non-ill will, you can do metta. One yogi says he was doing walking meditation there, and a lot of mosquitoes were swarming around his head, and so he started to chant Sukino wa kemi no hontu, but only imagining mosquitoes, not all beings, That is practicing non-ill will. You are not have ill will towards them, you have loving kindness with an ulterior motive. I give you loving kindness, you leave me alone, please. But you do it in a nice way, without ill will. You try not to get irritated at your fellow yogis. People behave in some way, sometimes it's not due to their doing, it's due to causes and conditions beyond their control. People cough, people sneeze in the middle of the night, you get up to go to the toilet, and you really cannot sleep. This is additional suffering. And your mind will start to go mangchang and start to grumble. That is not practicing right thought. If you really understand cause and condition, very easy. Everything is due to cause and condition. No one is in charge. So forgive, forget, accept. Right? When you practice open awareness and you try to see things as causes and conditions, very easy to do metta. In fact, Sayadaw Tejaniya does not teach metta at all. Not like here, we teach you Sukino wa kemi no hontu. There he doesn't teach metta at all. He says it comes naturally. But it will come naturally only when you really see cause and condition. And I don't know when that will happen. So that's why I start with metta first. The wild boar will get you first before you see that. Although we start with Sukino wa kemi no hontu, this is also one way of practicing non-ill will. Another way, a more profound way, of course, is to really have an experiential understanding of cause and condition within yourself. Then very easy for you to extrapolate. All of us are in the same boat. It's a matter of degree, intensity. It says non-ill will. Next one, the third aspect of right thought is harmlessness. Don't try to whack mosquitoes. You don't kill them, but you don't also try to hurt them so that they hurt their wings and they cannot come and bite you. You are not breaking the first precept, but you are not having the right thought. Right thought is harmlessness. This can be extended further to oneself. Don't be harmful to yourself. Have compassion for yourself. Don't try to push your body too far. You must know your own limits. Well, like I said, you try not to move when you're meditating in order for you to understand cause and condition. Right? But don't try to be too clever and force yourself to sit when you cannot tolerate it. I always say that in the end, you find that you cannot bear it any longer, you can move. I'm not saying that you stay motionless forever. So you have to use your discretion. Also, don't force yourself, particularly if you are motivated by a very strong desire to get enlightened. A sense of urgency becomes so strong that you meditate day and night without rest, and that also affects your body, and that's being harmful to your body. That's not right thought. You have to be harmless to yourself and to all beings. Have compassion for your body. Sometimes people have this idea that you have to sleep enough for good health. Usually when you read health articles, they will say that you must sleep 6 to 8 hours a day because the body needs that rest. And then you come here, cannot sleep. You sleep only 4 hours. And then your mind starts to, hey, I'm not getting enough sleep. Tomorrow I'll be groggy. When your mind is bright and you are alert at night, you cannot sleep, you worry. But actually, even with 4 hours sleep is enough because you are in a different situation. If you are downhill, you are back in the world, you have a lot of things to attend to. The mind is very busy. It's always thinking and planning and scheming and calculating and doing all sorts of intellectual stuff. And according to an ex-biology professor of MU, he says that more than 80%, maybe 85% of the body's energy is used up by the brain. Thinking. In meditation retreat, where we try to stay with the senses and not get carried away by our thoughts, we are conserving energy. We are not thinking so much. And you're not doing any manual labor. Actually, even the manual laborer doesn't consume as much energy as a blue-collar worker who sits in the office in the aircon room, but he has got to think a lot. He's consuming more energy than a construction worker. Physically, we are not exerting ourselves, and mentally also, we are not exerting ourselves, so the metabolism rate of the body slows down. You don't need so much sleep. In fact, the Buddha said only 4 hours. You heard of graduate training? But I don't force you, because unless you get the momentum of the samadhi, 4 hours is a tall order, and you will disrupt your whole day the next day. You have to be compassionate to yourself. Don't harm yourself. Know your own limits. Let the sleep pattern adjust itself. If really you have the concentration, the mind can stay awake. But also remember that although the mind can be very alert and clear, the body also needs some rest. So the Buddha said 4 hours. Don't try to be too clever and don't sleep at all. So you have to have compassion for your body as well. These are right thought. First one is denunciation, renouncing sensual thoughts about sensual pleasures. Second is non-ill will. Third is harmlessness. Next one is right speech. Right speech here involves the precepts that you have taken. I think not all of them are covered. You have only Sambhajana Musavada, which is refraining from lying. That's in your 8 precepts. But there are 3 others which are not covered in your 8 precepts. There are 4 altogether under right speech. The first is abstaining from telling lies. The second is abstaining from divisive speech. When people are in harmony and then you are jealous, you go and backbite. You tell this person, that guy said this behind your back. And you went to tell the other fellow and say, hey, this guy said this behind your back. Whether it's true or not, if your intention is to divide them, cause disharmony, that is divisive speech. The next one is harsh speech. Speaking harshly so that you hurt the other person intentionally. People who are very close with one another are very good at that because they know all the likes and dislikes of the other party. Spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends are very good at that. When you're unhappy, you say something purposely to hurt the other person. This is not the right speech. Right speech means that you have to be gentle in your speech. Fourth is frivolous talk, useless talk, talking about things which have no spiritual or material benefit, just for the sake of talking, getting bored, getting lonely, just go there and just chatter away. That is also wrong speech. Now, in the context of our retreat situation, we have our rules and regulations. And one of the first things that I said when we checked in is that we need to keep noble silence. And then noble silence is all over the place. It's pasted up there. I wonder whether I said it earlier. Noble silence in its ultimate sense means the second jhana, where there are no thoughts in your mind. Because you may have noble silence verbally, physically, by keeping mum. You shut up and you don't talk, but your mind may be chattering the whole day. That is not real noble silence. Real noble silence occurs when the mind stills and there are no thoughts. I'm sure that some of you have experienced this in the course of a meditation. When you're busy trying to be aware of the senses, there are times when there are no thoughts. If you're a thinker and you've been thinking all the time, sometimes you might wonder, hey, what happened just now? I can't remember this space. I wasn't thinking, but I was alert. So it's very strange to you if you're a thinker, because you've been thinking all your whole life and you don't know that it's possible not to think. When you're busy with the senses, just watching and not getting involved in thoughts, there will be gaps, and the gaps can be longer where there are no thoughts. And that's the real noble silence. The sort of noble silence that I'm talking about here, of not conversing with one another, is more of a cause and condition for you to get the ultimate noble silence. Because in a retreat situation, when you are just trying to train the mind to be aware of the senses, getting lost in thoughts, it can become very boring, because you have been used to thinking all your life. It becomes boring, and then when two bored people get together, what do? They start to talk. It's interesting, isn't it? And when you talk, what happens when you go to sit? Playback. All those things that you say will come back again. And I should have said this, or I should have said that. Or some nice things you said and it makes you happy, you play that again and again, or to get the pleasure of it. Because it's so boring watching the six senses. So you play back all those nice memories, nice conversation that you had. It disrupts your own practice as well as the other person whom you are talking to. That person's practice as well. Despite having said that, I noticed that some people have started to talk. And I was told that one yogi talked for 1.5 hours, even longer than my giving you a Dhamma talk. I think you all jumped the gun, because I was going to Pang San tomorrow. I was going to release you tomorrow. Because, well, talking meditation is also part of the Satipatthana. The Buddha says that you should act in full awareness when you're keeping silent, when you're speaking. Yeah, but it's very difficult. Therefore, I defer it until the end of the retreat. But some of you have jumped the gun. You have already started to talk. But anyway, from tomorrow onwards, you are free to talk with one another, provided you do so only in the kitchen area or under the trees. Nowhere else, not in the meditation hall, not in your quarters. And secondly, you can only talk about what is related to the retreat. What is related to retreat or the Dhamma talk, some things you want to share about your experience, you're not sure, or about certain aspects of the Dhamma talks, certain aspects of the doctrine, about the practice, then you can talk. But when you talk, be mindful. How do you be mindful? Since the last 2 days, I've been laying the foundation for you. Even before the Dhamma talk starts, I've already told you that you should try to anchor yourself to the body. When you're engaged in a conversation, don't give your full attention to the person. While you're here, you should reserve about 30 to 40% of your attention on yourself, on your body, on the surroundings. Even what you see, look at the person, you don't focused, but in a general way. That's talking about the physical aspect of it. The mental aspect of it is that you have to watch your own mind. First, before you talk, put it to the bar test. Before you reply, before you start a conversation, put it to the bar test. Is it beneficial, appropriate, relevant, or realistic? Let me go through again the bar test because some of you are still not quite sure of how it can be applied. Beneficial means beneficial in the context of this retreat. You are here on a retreat, you are trying to meditate, you are trying to practice mindfulness and full awareness so that you can understand things according to reality, according to how they have occurred. When you talk about benefit, first of all, the bar test, all of this refers to yourself, not the other person. Does it benefit you? First, it does. Does it benefit the other person? It does. If it benefits you, but not the other person, don't say. If it benefits the other person, does it benefit you? Also don't say. Only when it benefits both persons in the context of this retreat. Appropriate. Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Alright? I've already demarcated the place. It's only there. If something arises here, you want to talk. You cannot talk here. You cannot talk in your room, in a dorm. Go to the kitchen and talk. Or not the kitchen, the dining hall. Or under the trees. There, that area. That is appropriateness. Another aspect of appropriateness is whether it is related to the topics that I have allowed you to talk about. Whether it's related to the practice, related to the Dhamma talk, to the doctrines that were brought up. Whether it's relevant. In a retreat situation, it means relevant to the object of meditation that you are attending to. If it's appropriate, is it relevant in the sense that can you practice talking meditation like I'm telling you? 40% of your attention is on your body, on your senses, and then you are also trying to look at your intentions before you speak up. And speak slowly. Speak slowly so that you can be aware of what you are saying, what you're going to say. And as you speak, you can also be aware of your throat or your tongue that is moving, your voice box, your voice, your sound, whether it's loud, whether it's soft, whether it's slow, whether it's fast. At the same time, you can also look at the other person and assess the other person's receptivity. Is he or she getting bored with what I'm saying? Is he or she really listening? You have to use that to assess the other person as well. This will be very useful because when you go back to your worldly life, this is what you need to know. When you want to talk to a person, you cannot just impose your views on the other person. You have to assess where the other person comes from so that when you talk, you can talk from his end so that you can bring him over. When you listen to the other person also, look back at your own mental reaction. How you're reacting. Are you making any preconceived judgments about what this person is saying, about his character? Look at the content of what the other person is saying. Is he coming from a space of assumption? Or is he really telling something which is factual? You have to look at it that way as well. Relevance means whether you can carry out the conversation according to a meditative practice that I've just outlined. And finally, realistic. Realistic means while you are speaking, can you also see the sense of not self? That we are all, whatever ideas that we are exchanging or talking about, these ideas are also conditioned phenomena. They are based on certain assumptions, certain beliefs. Don't cling on to any ideas. Don't cling on to any opinions. An opinion is just an opinion based on certain assumptions, based on certain facts that you have gathered, based on certain information. Your information, your database may not be as wide as the other person, or may be wider than the other person. When you're in the course of conversation, then you should understand that maybe what each of you knows is not really complete. Maybe you're lacking some, and maybe he or she is lacking some. When you exchange ideas, don't cling on to your views or opinions. They can be modified or updated according to new information and a broader database. Keep that open-mindedness. So much for right speech. Right action is quite simple. Refraining from taking life, taking what is not given, and refraining from sexual misconduct. Here you are even one step higher. You abstain from non-celibacy. There's nothing very much to elaborate on this. Right action is quite obvious. Now we go on to right livelihood. In terms of right livelihood, right now, you have already fulfilled this factor because you are not doing any wrong livelihood. And the Buddha also defined it in a very strange way. He says, what is right livelihood? He says, here, a disciple of the Noble One lives his life according to right livelihood. So what is right livelihood? It's not defined. He lives his life according to right livelihood. But in other suttas we hear that it is the wrong livelihood to engage in occupations that involve killing, that involve poison, that involve trading in meat and human beings, slavery, and so forth. These are harmful occupations and also occupations that break your precept. This is wrong livelihood. Right now, all of you are not involved in wrong livelihood, so you already fulfill this factor. It looks like all of you are already on almost there. Almost all the factors are already there. Now we're going on to 6, 7, and 8. What is right effort? Right effort has got two aspects. The first is regarding unwholesome mental states, and the second is regarding wholesome mental states. The first pair is to abandon unwholesome mental states after they have arisen, and to prevent unwholesome states from arising if they have not yet arisen. Then the second pair is to arouse wholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen, and secondly, if they have already arisen, to maintain and develop them to fulfillment. Here we are saying that whatever unwholesome states that arise in you, you abandon them by not pushing them away, by not indulging in them, but coming back to the senses. Abandonment is not equal to pushing away. Abandonment means you don't entertain them, you don't indulge in them, you don't push them away, but you come back to the senses. However, sometimes the Buddha also has drastic measures for that. If really indeed you can't do that, you cannot just come back to the six senses because it's so compelling, then he also recommends that you use force to actually push it away. But that's what we don't do. We don't do here. In a way, for example, if you are beset by a lot of thoughts and you really don't want to get involved in them and they keep on coming even though you are back to the senses, then you have to exercise patience, understanding, have the right attitude. It's natural for thinking to occur. Causes or conditions are such that they keep on appearing. Be patient, let go, come back again to the senses. And if it comes again, let go, come back again to the senses. As I said, in the Ada anchor principle. The first one is the attitude. You have the right attitude. Then you don't push them away, don't ignore them, don't follow them, but you acknowledge them and anchor yourself to the five senses. And to prevent unwholesome mental states from arising is you take preventive measures. When you are not able to control yourself, when you get near to a certain person that sort of evokes a lot of ill will in you, you try to avoid that person. That's one way of preventive measure. There are other things which you look at your own buttons. There are certain things that push your buttons and cannot control. When you are aware of such things, you look at the cause and condition. What is it that will push my button? You know that will happen. You try to avoid it. So that is prevention. It's just like chain smoker or someone who is addicted to smoking and he wants to cut the habit. He must take preventive measures. He has to throw away all his cigarettes, but not just in the dustbin, because when the urge comes, he'll pick it up and smoke again, right? He has to make sure that he throws it far away or give it away to somebody. And secondly, he must try not to associate with his smoking kakis. Don't go near anybody who is smoking, because that will cause the urge to arise and you cannot resist. So these are the preventive measures. And here again, you need to understand causes and conditions. What is the cause and condition for this unwholesome state to arise? When you know, then you try to avoid them. The second pair is regarding wholesome states. And what are the wholesome states? The wholesome states are what we're trying to do here. Having faith, mindfulness, effort, composure, and trying to understand how things arise and pass away due to causes and conditions. Also trying to maintain your precepts, trying to follow house rules and follow the duty roster so that we can stay here in harmony and do things considerately. Once these wholesome states have arisen, then you should try to maintain them. This also involves understanding the causes and conditions. What is the cause and condition for mindfulness to arise? What is the cause and condition for energy to arise? What is the cause and condition for composure to arise? What is the cause and condition for wisdom to arise? If you know the cause and conditions, then you can try to create the causes and conditions so that these states can arise. When you know these causes and conditions, then you can also know how to maintain them and to develop them to fulfillment. Finish right effort. Now we're going on to right mindfulness, which is number 7. Right mindfulness is invariably defined in the sutras as the 4 establishments of mindfulness. In short, the 4 establishments of mindfulness are repeatedly observing the body as the body, repeatedly observing feelings as feelings, the mind or mental states as mental states, and mental objects as mental objects, which is what all of you are doing. What is the body? Like I said, be aware of the body as a mass, the body as a whole. You don't have to zoom in into any particular point. That is also found at the end of the section on contemplation of the body in the Satipatthana. After giving many exercises, 14 exercises altogether, various ways of how to repeatedly observe the body as body, finally in the end, he says, once mindfulness is established, to know that this is the body. Just enough for the sake of knowledge and for the sake of repeated mindfulness. So you don't have to zoom into the elements, you don't have to look into 31 parts of the body, you just be aware of the body as a whole. This body is just the body, it's not me, it's not mine, it's not myself. Then we're coming on to feelings also. I say that you are supposed to be fully aware when feelings arise, persist and go away. And if you can see the causes and conditions, you can also see It's not me, not mine, not myself. It arises due to causes and conditions. Feelings. Feelings are very simple. It's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. We must be careful with the English word feeling, which is broader. Feelings in English usage involves emotions as well. In Pali, feelings are very simple. They are only mental feelings of being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Not emotions like your heart becoming constricted, your breathing becomes fast, and then there's a sour feeling in your stomach. These are not included. These are physical sensations. And then mental states. Of course, you are familiar with mental states. The mind that is accompanied by greed, attachment, desire, wanting. The mind that is not accompanied by that is free from that. The mind that is accompanied by ill will, anger, irritation. Or the mind that is free from anger, from irritation. The mind that is deluded, not knowing that things arise and pass away due to cause and conditioning, still thinking that that mind belongs to me, that's delusion. But there are moments when there's non-delusion. When you see things arise and pass away due to cause and conditioning, and you don't identify them as mine, me, or myself. These are moments when the mind is clear and non-deluded. That is also part of Satipatthana. That is third Satipatthana. The third establishment of mindfulness is watching mental states. The fourth one is Dhammanupassana. Repeatedly observing Dhamma. What is Dhamma? When you listen, when you hear, when you observe hearing, when you observe seeing, when you observe smelling, tasting, feeling with the body, how the mind thinks and imagines, how thoughts come and go, these are all Dhamma. You have been doing that since day one. So you're already on the right path. You're doing right mindfulness as well. What is right composure, right samadhi? This one is a bit tricky. Because in the suttas, there are 4 suttas which define right samadhi as the 4 jhanas. And there are 4 other suttas which define samasamadhi or right samadhi as Aggacitta, one blessedness of mind. Sometimes it's translated as one pointedness of mind, but I prefer to translate it as one blessedness of mind, supported by the 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So it seems like in order to reconcile these 2 explanations of what right samadhi is, the jhana must be supported by the 7 path factors. And if you have one blessedness of mind, it must also be at the jhana level. Right samadhi means samadhi at the jhana level, which is supported by the 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Or if a person were to just practice staring at the candle flame and trying to focus on the candle flame to the exclusion of all other objects, then he gets absorbed. And his mind is totally absorbed, and he gets the factors of the first jhana appear. There is initial application, there is sustained application, there is rapture, there is happiness. That is jhana. But it is not supported by the 7 path factors. That person may not even be a Buddhist. He doesn't have the right view and doesn't have right thinking, right thoughts. That is not right samadhi. If you practice open awareness and your mind is aware of things as they come and go, just whatever thoughts you have, you just ignore them. You just focus on being aware of the senses without any right view, without any background knowledge of how things arise and pass away due to cause and conditioning. That is also samatha. That will give you samadhi. The mind becomes very peaceful and calm. And also very spacious. Why? Because you are not limited by your thoughts. You are not constricted or disturbed by thoughts. The mind is so busy trying to be aware of the senses that thoughts have receded, and that's where peace and stillness comes in. And it's spacious because you know so many things, but no thoughts. It's a different sort of feeling from focused awareness. But that also cannot be right samadhi. Even though there may be initial application, there may be sustained application, there may be rapture, there may be happiness or comfort, but it's not right samadhi because there's no right view. It must be supported by right view, by the other path factors before it can qualify as right samadhi. Some people here are very concerned that in order to be on the right path, you must have the jhanas. And when you practice open awareness, it doesn't seem that you're going to get jhanas. But actually you can get jhana also. When you practice open awareness and you don't investigate, just be aware of the senses. Ignore thoughts. Just be aware of the senses. The mind will calm down, no thoughts. Then you will achieve noble silence. Second jhana. No thoughts, just awareness, and there will be joy and happiness and contentment. But you have to investigate in order for wisdom to arise. So that's why earlier on I said that we are already more than halfway through the retreat. Don't just stay with peace and stillness of open awareness. Once the mind is composed, investigate to see cause and conditioning. This is to verify the right view. Normally we just talk about the Noble Eightfold Path. But there are a couple of suttas which have two additional factors, which are right knowledge and right liberation. After you go through all this until right samadhi, you cannot just stop there. The most important thing is knowledge. Where's the knowledge? You have right samadhi but no knowledge. What's the point? From right samadhi, you go to right knowledge. And because of right knowledge, then there's right liberation. That's the end of the path. If you don't take these two factors into consideration, then right samadhi has to go back to right view. It's a cyclical thing. You go to right samadhi, and then when the mind is composed, you have to verify the right view that you learned. You see, things are all impermanent, arising and passing away from moment to moment. Is that really true? And then investigate to see within yourself, not outside. You don't try to see conditionality outside because there's only guesswork. You can't say, oh, I saw cause and effect. Because I saw somebody walking to the dining hall, he must be hungry, therefore it's a condition, and that's the cause. It's all guesswork. You don't know why the monkeys are calling out to one another. You can only guess, oh, they are mating, there's one female calling another male. But what you can see is the cause and conditioning within yourself. You hear the sound, that is a cause. And then you recognize it, and then you start to think about it. Your thoughts are conditioned by the past. For example, there was one yogi who reported that she was doing open awareness. So I asked her, how do you do open awareness? She said, I open my eyes, and I look at nature, and I look at leaves falling, and then I say, oh, that is impermanent. Life is all like that, fall already, and then you will die, and you decay. That's making a story out of it. So that's not what you're supposed to do. You see cause and conditioning within yourself. Alright, you see your leaf falling, and then the mind recognizes it. Oh, there's a cause. The cause is the mind sees the leaf falling. And then the thought arises about this is life, this is impermanent. This one comes from past conditioning because you read about it. This past conditioning and this present cause create this thought. You did not think this thought, it came about because of cause and conditioning. This is something internal. You can verify yourself. This is not guesswork. What happens outside is guesswork. But so you can only see what happens inside without any doubt. And when you can see that again and again and again, how things arise and pass away due to causes and conditions, then it's very easy to extrapolate. When something happens not according to your wishes, not according to your expectations, automatically the mind will just say, oh, it's cause and condition. So it's very easy for you to let go, to accept. But you must start from yourself, not just something intellectual outside. You must really verify it within yourself. You're almost there. So I will continue tomorrow to talk more about what so-called realistic things when you get back home, because it's going to be a different environment and it's going to be a different set of criteria for you to put into practice. So at this point, any questions? Yes?
Two set of able paths. The mundane one is the liberation.
This right view there is.
The right view on a mundane level, it can also be helpful for one on the spiritual path, on the path to liberation. For example, you're sitting here and meditating, and then somebody does walking meditation, stomping meditation rather, boom, 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 boom around, and you're sitting here, and then you try to calm yourself and say, oh, this is only cause and condition. Bhante says nothing is a distraction, just focus on your open awareness, just watch what's happening. But still the mind becomes very agitated. Then you can make use of this mundane right view by saying it's due to karma. Probably in the past I also was as considerate as this yogi, and so now I have to pay back. It can be also very consoling in times when you meet with such encounters. But there's also one sutta, I think it's called the Mahacaktarisika Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. The Buddha starts off by saying that he is going to talk about the noble right samadhi supported by the 7 path factors. And he tells that this is actually Aggacitta supported by the 7 path factors. And he goes on to talk about right view and right thought, right speech and so forth. And in each of them, he will say there's a mundane and there's a supramundane. If you want, you can go and see in that sutta.
Bhante, it seems like the playback time, we always have this playback during our meditation. Will there be, when we can reach a level in this open awareness, the playback time will not come back and haunt you in the sitting?
This playback that comes to you in your meditation, can one reach a stage in open awareness whereby these playback things will not come again? Well, that's when you reach noble silence, when there are no more thoughts how to play back.
That means you have to go through that stage, because usually the no thoughts will come maybe after when you have composed it enough. That means in a way that you have reached a certain level of composure when you sit and then it will not come and haunt you, or you have to sit through a period.
Yeah, I think you have to sit through a period. It's when the mind is composed that these things won't come. These playback things are also, it depends on how intense it is to your memory. If it's something, a traumatic experience, it will play back very often until you resolve it. If it's just a recent conversation, because it's very near, due to proximity, it can also come. But with time, it will just fade away. But it's a traumatic issue, unresolved issue, it will come again and again and again until you resolve it. When you resolve it, it won't come again. And how do you resolve it? When you see its root cause. Anyone else? Yes.
Just how you say that noble equal path, the right samadhi is not the end. You still have right knowledge and right liberation.
Right knowledge.
You still have right knowledge and right liberation. So how come I never heard people talking about 10 noble paths? Why is it always 8?
As I said, there's only a couple of suttas which talk about this, but they don't use the word noble path. He says the 10 types of rightness and the 10 types of wrongness. Samma is right. He says sammatta and micchatta, which is miccha is wrong. So the 10 types of rightness and the 10 types of wrongness. And then they will say, what are the 10 types? He says, oh, this is right view, right speech, and so forth, and going to right samadhi, right knowledge, and right liberation. But when he talks about Noble Eightfold Path, then he will just say the 8 factors. As I said, when you just talk about Noble Eightfold Path, after right samadhi, you have to go back to right view, to sort of refresh it or to update it with composed mind. The initial right view is just something intellectual, and then you have to go through all the rest of it, get your right composure, and to verify it in practice. Then that right view becomes experiential. Initially, it's just intellectual. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I think enough for tonight.